If you speak two or more languages, have you ever felt different speaking one of them? Do you feel that you have like a different personality, or do you feel and react differently according to the language that you're speaking? Hi, I'm Reynoso, and today I'm gonna be talking about how speaking different languages affects my personality and how it can affect yours. Many years ago, I started learning English on my own. When I started watching series and movies and listening to music, I fell in love with American culture. But I didn't expect English to affect me as much as it does. For example, I feel as a different person when I get mad. For example, I get mad more easier in Spanish as I do in English. In English, I feel more calm, more thoughtful, more reasonable. But maybe you can say that, well, it's because Spanish is a much more passionate language. But actually it has to do with the brain working slower in another language than when we speak our mother tongue. It has to do with the grammar. And it affects me to the point where I feel like I can think better when I'm speaking English, even when I think in English. But going back to how I feel, I think that I feel different in English, but not that I am only logical and thoughtful when I'm speaking English or when I think in English. Actually, I feel that my emotions are pretty strong when I listen to music in English. I feel that lyrics just hit differently when I'm listening to English music. But something that I was thinking about was when I mentioned to a friend that I was going to talk about this topic on my TED Talk, that she told me, well, you do that, you change your personality because you're a Gemini. Well, yes, I am, and I admit Geminis have a lot of different sides of their personality, and I do, but this that I'm going to talk about has nothing to do with zodiac signs. And believe me, I love analyzing people according to the zodiac signs, but this has nothing to do with that. Different people have different experiences. Their personalities are shaped by the culture, the things that they are going through, their context, but also the language that they speak. While I was doing this research, I found many experiences of people speaking more than one languages, mostly bilingual people who have talked about how they feel differently according to the language that they are speaking, how certain shade of their personality might stand out according to the language that they are speaking. And this has to do a little bit with context, a little bit with culture, but mostly has to do with something that happens in the brain. Actually, I found out an example on the Greek culture that they tend to interrupt a lot and talk very loudly. But why does this happen? It happens because Greek, when they start a sentence, they tend to start a sentence with a verb that gives a lot of meaning, and they're able to know what the other people is going to say without even hearing the whole sentence, and that's why they can communicate very well without listening to all the sentence. I also found another examples. Actually, I found an example of a girl who speaks 6 languages, and she is able to recognize which shade of her personality stands out in each language. And you may say that this has to do with the context, with the people that she's talking to, and maybe with the culture. And yes, it has to do a little bit with that, but she found it very interesting to see which shade of her personality stands out in order to use it for herself, to improve, and to take advantage of it. Actually, a lot of people feel more funnier or spontaneous in their mother tongue, but some others don't, and that's the point. Everyone is affected in a different way. And of course, this has to do with the fact that we are humans, we adapt constantly, and maybe when we change the language that we're speaking, when we switch it, it is nice to know what shade of our personality is showing up more, in order for us to feel more comfortable according to the context or to the place that we are. It is nice to know how languages affect our personality because we can take advantage of it. How? Well, I hope I'm not the only one who talks to herself constantly, but I think that if we know which languages affect us in different ways. For example, some people might feel more logical and objective in certain language, but when they're speaking another language, they might feel more emotional, and these emotions can affect the way that they act. So maybe when we are going through a hard time or when we need to make a decision that is very important for us, we can think or talk in a different language that can give us some distance from the subject, from anything that we are dealing to. And I think that this can be very useful even when we get anxious, when we are crying, when we are mainly sobbing, when we are sad, in order for us to take a little bit of distance, think, and I guess that knowing how languages affect us is a great advantage of being bilingual. Now, I am basing all of this according to some people's experiences, according to my own experience. You might think so, but actually no. There have been some surveys, mostly I focused on one that took place during the years of 2001 and 2003, where some linguistics asked over 1,000 bilinguals whether they feel different when they're speaking a language, if they feel like a different person. And it's surprising to say that 2/3 of those people say that they did. Besides the survey, there is a hypothesis created by Worf and Sapir that is called language relativity, that explains how the speaker's view of the world can change according to the language that they're speaking, how it affects cognition, and how learning another language can be useful for us. But also I have to say that most of the changes of our personality has to do with the fact that when we speak a second language, our brain tends to slow down their thinking. This happens because we are not symmetrically bilingual. That is to say, that we learn a first language at home, mostly, and then when we learn a second language outside that context, our brain has to work in a different way. Now, I would like to add something that caught my attention very much, the color spectrum. When I mention the color spectrum, it has to do with the fact that not all languages call the colors the same way. When we switch the language, there are languages which have a different way of describing the colors. For example, Greek tend to have a specific word for each color, for example, for each shade of blue, while in other languages you only have the distinction between warm, that would be red, yellow, orange, and cool colors, for example, blue or green. But what surprised me the most is that there are even languages in which the word color doesn't exist. According to the Lancaster University studies, they say that learning another language is like giving the brain the opportunity to perceive the world differently, to interpret it differently. And finishing with that quote, I'd like to say that learning another language has helped me a lot on my everyday life, to control my emotions, and also to see which sides of my personality can affect me in a different way and can stand out more in each language. So after hearing all of this, I hope that you can use it for your advantage, to manage your emotion, or to even just analyze yourself and see which side of your personality stands out more in each language. I hope that you have enjoyed it, and thank you for listening to me.